Hey guys, it's Mr. Francy here. Sit back, relax, snuggle into your favorite chair, and let's discuss a book that I just finished reading today, Vampire Academy by Rochelle with an R, Rochelle Mead. This book is technically a reread for me, but it is a book that I read so long ago that honestly I totally forgot what it was about. Well, let's try and be truthful here. Okay, I don't want to get into spoilers yet. So, I remembered a couple of things, but really not a lot. And one of the greatest things for me was I totally forgot how it ended. So, the ending was still a surprise for me. So this is going to be a non-spoiler and spoiler review of Vampire Academy Volume 1. So if you intend on reading this, or if you want to see by my review if you'd like to read this or not, this first section will be non-spoiler. I will let you know when I get to the spoiler point of this video. This book is a good book. Absolutely it is. I ended up giving this book 3 stars on Goodreads, but that's more personal taste from me, and that's something that I'm going to discuss more in the spoiler section. But what I will say is, if you like reading books about vampires, I don't really see why you wouldn't like this. Fair warning, it is a young adult it's a young adult fantasy and not an adult fantasy, so it does come with your usual young adult tropes, which Mr. Francy is starting to realise more and more these days as he reads more young adult fantasy compared to adult fantasy. What I mean by this is that there is at least one romance involved. Now, this is not something I'm particularly fond of. I don't particularly like when I'm reading a fantasy book and getting romances that are coming into it. It's just not my thing, but it might be yours. If you like that, you'll love it even more. But what can I say? It's an easy read. The writing style is incredibly easy, and the spacing, oh my gosh. I came off reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson prior to reading this, and Mistborn, the spacing is so much smaller. It's like a quarter of the size of the spacing in this one, and the text itself is a lot smaller as well. And it was, while Mistborn is such an amazing read, I classify it personally, because there's a debate among readers as to whether Mistborn is adult or young adult. I classify Mistborn to be an adult book. The reason why I'm saying that is because Mistborn is a harder read. It is an amazing book, don't get me wrong, but it's a harder read to get through because it is an adult book. This book is young adult. It is incredibly easy to read. The writing is incredibly simple, which there is nothing wrong with. In fact, after taking a quick peek at 3 Dark Crowns, I have to say I prefer simple writing to flowery writing, but this writing is incredibly simple, very easy to read. I would recommend this book for really anyone who's in high school, because there is a little bit of swearing in the book, but it is so few and far between. There might be 3 times where one swear word appears throughout the entire book. So I do have to give a swear word warning for the book, but it is so few and far between that every time I came to a swear word, I don't like swear words. It's not me. Hey, it may be you, and if it's you, great. You would love this book even more. But every time I came to a swear word, I would internally jump, going, oh, that was a swear word. But the last time a swear word appeared in the book was so long ago that it was like, oh, wow, it's actually been a while. Yeah, we've had one, but it happened a long time ago. Excuse me. So for me, I kind of forgive the 3, maybe 4 times that there is one swear word that appears throughout the entire book. Does it get graphic? A little, but it's not, oh god, it's no steamy romance that, there's no real overly graphic bedroom scene that occurs. There is one scene in this book where you get the start of something, but honestly, it's still young adult, okay? So very, very easy to read. Yep, incredibly easy to read. It's about vampires. They don't sparkle, as a lot of people have talked about ever since Bless Stephanie Meyer and Twilight. They don't sparkle, no. But at the same time, these vampires don't tend to burn in the sun either. There are a few examples where the vampires are out in the sun and no one seems to burn. So, so that happens too. But otherwise, it's basically based on the protagonist Rose, who is half human, half vampire, and they call that race, you're gonna have to forgive me here, Dampier, or Dampire. I've heard so many different pronunciations for it. I prefer to call it Damper myself, but Dampire makes a lot of sense because it rhymes with vampire. I just think that the Russian pronunciation, which the book is set at an academy, Vampire Academy, and the academy is called Saint Vladimir's, so it has a very Russian influence. So the Russian pronunciation of that word is Dampier, but for me, I don't know. I prefer to say damper, but Dampire still makes sense. And Rochelle Mead, Rochelle, I have to keep remembering with an R. Rochelle Mead is not Russian, so I don't know if she meant Dampier, or she meant Dampire, or she meant Damper, or Dahamper, because it's spelled Dhampir. But anyway, so Rose is that thing, a damper, and so she's half vampire, half human, and dampers at this school are trained to become guardians, and the guardians protect royalty. And so the students at the school, there's two types of classes and when I say class, I mean like classes as in wealth and all this kind of thing. There are two types of distinct classes of students at the school. One type is the dampers, like Rose, half vampire, half human. The other type is the Moroi, and the Moroi, Moroi, they are the royalty. So whether they are actual princes or princesses, or whether they are just part of a royal line, and they are treated incredibly differently. The Moroi are there to be protected, while the dampers are there to make sure that no harm comes to the Moroi. But if harm comes to a damper, then okay, it comes to a damper, that's totally fine. But not a Moroi. Oh my gosh, if one hair comes off of her head, oh, issues. But anyway, so there is a class/caste, CASTE system in this book, and I do really appreciate that. We even at one point do meet the queen of the vampires, which is pretty cool as well. All in all, great read, no dull parts at all. So if I was literally just rating it off of enjoyment, I would have probably given it 4 stars, because it wasn't amazing, but it was never boring at the same time. It was still an enjoyable read, but I gave it 3 stars because of the flashbacks. Really, every time there's a flashback, it's so seamless that I don't know if I'm in the present or if I'm in the past, or am I still in the past, or am I still in the present, have I gone back, have I gone forward? It's really hard for me to tell where I am at. Yeah, so, but all credit to Rochelle Mead, because it is a really good book. Okay, we are about 8, nearly 9 minutes in. I'm now going to turn over to the spoiler version, but before I do, just quickly to wrap this up, I recommend this book to anyone who loves vampire books. As a matter of fact, I was remembering right before I started reading this that I purchased this book when I was much younger, the first time I read this series, because I went into the bookshop and I said to the lady there, I've just finished reading Twilight and I absolutely loved it. Did not love the films, but I love the books. So, sorry, I don't know what it is, but unless it's Harry Potter, I just don't like the way that they turn books into films these days. But anyway, still praying for Mistborn. Come on, Mistborn, let's make it a movie. I'm praying that they'll do it right if they do. Anyway, so I went to the bookstore and I said, I've just finished reading Twilight and I absolutely loved it. Is there anything similar to that you think I might enjoy? And the lady recommended Vampire Academy. I'm glad she did. All in all, it was a great read then, and all in all, it was a great read now. So if you like any kind of vampire, YA vampire stories, you will love this. It's just, you'll also love the fact that, well, if you don't like sparkly vampires, you also love the fact that there's no sparkly vampires in this one. But anyway, give it a go. The protagonist is very different to a lot of protagonists that you read about as well, and there is a great character in this book who I will name his name but not tell you too much about him. His name is Christian Ozera, who I absolutely love in this book because of just how dark he is, and that's all I'm going to say. He is an incredibly dark character, and I just think it played off really well against some of the others. So anyway, if that sounds like a read for you, go right in and read it and let me know what you thought. Alright, let's get into the spoiler section of Vampire Academy. So if you have not read this book, now is the time to move away, because the rest of this video is going to be all about spoilers. 3, 2, 1, spoiler time. Here we go. So, if you don't know what this plot is about, basically it is a story about Rose, who, as I said, is a damper, and she is training to become a guardian of her best friend, who she calls Alyssa, but her full name is Vasilissa Dragomir. Vasilissa is an interesting character. She is a Moroi, she is a princess, she is the last of her family line, and all of the Moroi, we come to find out that they're meant to specialize in an element when it comes to magic. So not only vampires, but magical vampires. You can see why I kind of like this book. Anyway, so if you're a Moroi, you're either going to specialize in earth, air, fire, or water. But Lissa doesn't really seem to be specializing in any of them. Cut to a point where we find out that there's a reason why she hasn't specialized in anything, and the reason for that is that she's actually specializing in spirit, which is a much lesser known element. It's not really talked about at the school. So yeah, new times, we find that out towards the end of the book, and that will be explored, I'm sure, a lot more in books 2 and even book 3. I think book 3 is called Spirit Bound. I'll have to check that out, but I'm sure in that one there'll be a lot more talk about Lissa studying spirit. So yeah, there's an antagonist in the book who's really surprising, and his name is Victor. I think his name is Dashkov, at least that's what I call him, so if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I do apologize. But anyway, Victor Dashkov is loosely named Vasilissa's uncle. He's not really her uncle, and Rochelle Mead does explain this. She makes a point that you make sure you know he's not technically her blood uncle, but it's just with Moroi, terms like this, they're very loosely used. He's a close family friend, and so she just calls him Uncle Victor. So Victor Dashkov ends up being the antagonist in this series. You don't know this for most of the way through because he's a really nice, frail old man who's dying, and we find out that he has learned very early on that Vasilissa has specialized in spirit, even though she doesn't know it. And she can bring things back to life, which we learned throughout the book in flashbacks as well. And so he wants her to keep him alive, and there's no cure for what he is going through. He has a deathly illness that is going to kill him. There is no cure. But if she can cure him with her spirit and keep curing him with her spirit, he will remain alive and youthful forevermore. So he ends up capturing her. She does help him, but in the end, she ends up getting rescued and taken back to the academy. And yeah, we work out a couple of different things along the way, but basically, that's the premise. Let's discuss what I liked, what I didn't like, starting with 3 cons about this book. The first con that I have about this book is the flashbacks. Oh my god, I know I've already spoken about them, but let's do it again. The moments where we see Sonia Karp, and we're going back and forth between her in the past, what she's told Rose and what Rose has experienced with her, compared to what Rose is going through in present day. It was so extremely tough for me to know what was going on, because Rose is here doing something in the present, and then over here she's talking to Sonia in the past, but it's just, it melds together so well that I'm thinking, hang on, is Sonia actually there in present day? Are they in the past? It was really hard. And it may not be hard for you, but it was incredibly hard for me to keep track and go, hang on, wait, where are we? Are we in the past? Are we in the present? Like, help me out here, Rochelle Mead. And something I would have appreciated would have been some kind of obvious differentiation with the look of the writing. So even if it had been if the past had been written in italics, or if it had been separated, or a different different font or whatever, something to show us here's the past, here's the present. Yeah, I just felt like that would have been easier for me to grasp. It's not a massive no, but it was enough for me to deduct a star, because I did spend a lot of time going, where am I? Am I in the past or in the present? Okay, I'm in the present. No, wait, I'm in the past. What the heck's going on? So, yeah, that confusion annoyed me a little bit. Not enough to stop reading, not at all. Love this book, definitely got through it, was never going to DNF this book, but enough for me to deduct a star. The next con that I want to talk to you guys about, I'll do in just a moment. Okay, I am back. The next con that I wanted to talk to you guys about is the fact that this book does have, in my mind, an incredibly slow start. Oh my gosh. I am not a fan of romance in fantasy books, because to me, and I'm saying it this way because this is my view, because to me, they take up way too much space and they take way too much of the spotlight away from the fantastical elements. Unless you are, if someone ends up writing a book where the magic is enhanced by love, great, then I'll accept it. But if the magic or the fantasy has nothing to do with love, why are we including a romance? I just don't think it's necessary. And I'm starting to think, and this is what I was saying in the non-spoiler section, as well as the weekly vlog for this week, one of the things I'm starting to realize with YA tropes is, well, YA fantasy tropes anyway, or even just YA tropes in general, is that there is a YA romance trope in every single genre that I've read so far to do with a YA. Why do we have to have romance everywhere? It just doesn't need to happen. Plus, it's not realistic. If you're going to write a YA novel for the sake of hoping that someone's going to relate to it, a young adult's going to relate to it, what about the young adult that's not in a relationship? Now, for me, it has nothing to do with my personal life, whether I'm in a relationship or not. It has to do with the fact that I'm reading a fantasy book. I'm not reading a contemporary book. I'm not reading a romance book. I'm reading a fantasy book where I want, in this book, to read about vampires, and there's magic in the book as well. I want to read about that. And if we could have spent more time maybe learning more about Christian's background, because I loved Christian, you guys. Like, in case you hadn't worked it out, because I've already said it, Christian Ozera is arguably my favorite character in this whole book. Not Rose. Rose probably comes second, but I loved Krishna Zera, and I wish we could have spent more time on him. Instead, we're spending so long dealing with Vasilisa's relationship with Aaron, and then Vasilisa not being with Aaron, and then Vasilisa's back with Aaron again just to make Mia jealous. Rose loves Dimitri, but everyone else loves Rose, including Mason. And honestly, it's fine. Like, because it's such an easy read, especially with the writing style. It's just, I got through it like that. I got through in like 3 or 4 days, really quickly. It's fine. I dealt with it, but really, I didn't need it. And so, for me, I said this with another book as well. I feel like it could cut out a lot of the pages in this book and just have it as like how many pages are there in this book, by the way? 332. You can have it as a 200-page book and cut out all the romance and you would be fine. But that's just my opinion, and that's why I had to take off another half a star, because I just don't enjoy it. If the romance is not taking over the action, fantasy, magical elements of the book, that's fine. But in this book, they definitely do. And in other YA books that I've read this year, they definitely do. It's like everything else is shelved, and it doesn't matter because, hey, we need to spend time with our characters watching them go through a relationship. Well, why? It's not a romance book. So I'm sorry, Rochelle Mead, not for me, taking off half a star. The reason why I took off another half a star to give a total of 3 stars for this book is because the ending was good, yeah, but not great. So, Vasilisa is tied up and she's at Uncle Dashkov's and he's explaining to her how everything happened, and we're getting the quote-unquote big reveal anyway, because it wasn't a massive reveal, but still, it was a reveal. So we got the reveal that he's the one that's been trying to, do this, all the stuff that she's been going through since she got back to the academy anyway, he's been the one that's making this happen because he knew that she had spirit and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's fine. And we also find out... thought I heard something there. We also find out that Natalie is the one that has been putting the dead animals in her room thanks to her uncle, and that was good too. I loved both of those reveals. I thought they were really, really good. I'll admit, I got halfway through the book and then I remembered, oh yeah, Victor Dashkov, bad guy. So I did remember that, I just didn't remember why. But I totally forgot about the Natalie thing, and that was amazing because I did fall in love with Natalie. Natalie just seemed like this really nice person that I would love to hang around. So I was like, oh my god, wow, it was Natalie. So that was a big reveal to me. The Strigoi thing, the fact that Natalie is a Strigoi, either way. The fact that Natalie now was, I think she's been killed. Yeah, I think Dimitri killed her in the end. But anyway, the fact that Natalie was a Strigoi, that was pretty big to me too. A little bit heartbreaking because I loved her so much and I was so sad for her that she had to become a Strigoi. But that was pretty big too. But the fact that Victor Dashkov has Vasilisa in his home, she does the spirit thing, and then we don't really know what happened because Rose comes out of the connection and she's talking to Dimitri and the other guardian that's behind her in the car. We don't know what's happening, but the next thing we know, we go back to Vasilisa and Dashkov has left the room. There is a guardian there with her, but she has the power of compulsion, which I don't know if Victor said that he knew that or not, but I'm pretty sure that he would have known that. I just don't remember if he said it or not, but considering how smart Victor Dashkov seems to be, I'm sure he would have realized by now that she has compulsion. Why, after going through all that, you got what you wanted, yes, but you wanted her to keep doing this to you, you know, why would you just walk out of the room and let her go? And that's exactly what happened. She uses compulsion on the Guardian, she jumps out the window, goodbye. And granted, he sent the Psyhounds after her, but as Rose was thinking, and I agree with her, it wasn't like they were going to attack Vasilisa because he needed her. So he practically let her run away. So, yeah, still confused about all that. And now on to my pros. Pro number one, because I'll do 3 cons and 3 pros and end on a high note. Pro number one, really, 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 really easy to read. And I really appreciate that because my first attempt at Mistborn was really tough. And I keep mentioning Mistborn because I literally just came off Mistborn and started reading this. My first attempt at Mistborn was really tough, and it took me a good minute, to get into Brandon Sanderson's writing style. But to go from Mistborn to this, flew through this easily. Rochelle, I keep calling her Michelle. Rochelle Mead, amazing writer, really easy, really simple language, very quick to get through, and that definitely deserved a star for me because I had no qualms at all. Not only had I just gotten through Mistborn, but I had just DNF'd 3 Dark Crowns with all that flowery writing, and that makes you think every single sentence about what they're trying to say, let alone what's going on in the plot. Simple, easy writing, definitely deserves a star. Thank you, Rochelle Mead. Second thing is the class/caste, C-A-S-T-E, system in this book. Really appreciated that. Strigoi, Blood Whores, Moroi, Dampier, all that kind of stuff. Really, really appreciated the contrast between the classes. And as much as I don't appreciate how dampers, how dampers are being treated in this book compared to the Moroi, I appreciated the contrast so very much. Oh, and Guardians as well, obviously, is another class as well. I loved, to do with the class and caste side of things, I love how at the end, Vasilisa, her story arc was amazing. She's not the story arc I referred to on Goodreads, so I'm getting to that in a moment. But, sorry, it was, actually. So, it was Vasilisa, sorry. Okay. Third thing I want to talk about, so I'll get to Vasilisa in a moment. Third thing I want to talk about is Christian Ozera. I have to. It's my pro section of this book, and I love this guy. I don't know, of this kid. Anyway, this guy, he's a male. This guy. I love this guy. He is so incredibly dark, but what a character. This is a guy who no one talks to, no one likes him because of what happened to his parents. His parents turned Strigoi. It's not his fault, and it's also even known around the school it's not his fault, but still they hold it against him, even though it's not his fault, so they don't talk to him. Normally, that makes you feel sorry for a character, but I do not in the slightest feel sorry for Christian Ozera, and it's not because I think he's a bad guy, it's because I love what he does with it. He doesn't sit there and cry and get upset that no one likes him. No, not at all. He sits back and observes everything that goes on around him, and I just love it. It's so amazing. I'm sure a lot of people love Mason. I don't really love Mason at all. I think he tries a little too hard because of his love for Rose, but I love how observant Christian is. I love the conversations Christian had with Vasilisa. I hated when Rose was trying to get him to not talk to Vasilisa. I love when Christian admitted to Vasilisa that it was Rose that was convincing him to stay away. I just love this guy. And the longer that Vasilisa stays with Christian, I'm so glad they end up together. The longer they stay together, the happier I'm going to be. I don't like romance, but I love those two, and I love what they bring out of each other. If you are going to give me a pointless romance, I don't care. But if you are going to give me a romance that really grows over time and it's so subtle that you don't even know it's a romance until it suddenly becomes one, I'm fine with that. And that's exactly what you get with Christian Ozera and Vasilisa Dragomir. I really appreciated that. Moving on from Christian Ozera to Vasilisa Dragomir, and this will be the last point I'm going to make, my final pro of this book. Her story arc is absolutely incredible. She is such a timid mouse at the start of the book. I half read this, half listened to audiobook, but even when I listened to the audiobook, I was still reading along. I find it really hard to listen to the audiobook and not read. I had some times where I listened to the audiobook where I wasn't reading, but it was parts I'd already read in the actual book. So I was doing both. And the narrator, the version I was listening to, that narrator, she did Vasilisa's part so well because she's a little squeaky mouse to begin with for a princess, and yet by the time we get to the end of this book, she is so amazing. The fact that she's attempting to even stand up to Victor Dashkov and say, no, I'm not going to do this, and that she's, has the gall to go off at Christian, she has the gall to go off at Rose at one stage. Absolutely love it. I love that there was also a section in the book where, and I put this in one of my little updates with this story, she says to Rose, it's my turn to protect you. I love that. But towards the end, right at the end, the last chapter I believe, Vasilisa is under the impression she wants to be like Rose. She wants to fight alongside Rose and have both of them kind of be guardians, despite the fact that she's a Morai. Yes! All hail Queen Vasilisa. Oh my gosh. And I keep saying her name because I just love her name so much. I don't like that she's called Lissa. I guess it's just I don't like that she's nicknamed Lissa. And I guess it's because it's a YA book, but I just love the name Vasilisa, so that's why I say it. But all hail potential Queen Vasilisa. Gosh, I want to make her queen right now. I just think it's amazing. Victor Dashkov, do I have enough time? Okay, very quickly. Victor Dashkov, I want to quickly talk about how, yes, he's the antagonist. Yes, I grew to loathe him, but I didn't loathe him right away at the reveal because I kind of got where he was coming from. But Vasilisa makes some really good points where she says to him, but why did you have to kidnap me? There was no point in doing this. I would have done it anyway. And to that, I kind of thought, you know what, good point. Why couldn't he just visit her at the school and say, listen, I'm dying, but I know how I can be cured. You can actually help me with this. There was no need for him to kidnap her. Not at all. But anyway, I actually sympathized with his situation. Not only is it about, it's not selfish of him. Yes, he wants to remain alive. That part might be selfish, but he actually wants to remain alive because he wants to change the way that Moroi are. And I really did appreciate that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him now because he's kind of run away. I think he ran away anyway. Oh no, he didn't run away. Wait, or did he run away? I don't know. I'm kind of confused if he ran away or not. But if he's still alive, it'll be really interesting to see where things go with him. And if he's dead, then that's fine too. But I didn't hate him right away. And that says a lot. Because most of the time, I don't like the villains at all. I'm all about the heroes. But I understood why Viktor Dashkov wanted to keep living. Anyway, ultimately I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. Where the last time I read it, I actually gave the book 2 out of 5 stars. So actually, it improved this time, and that was, as I said, many years ago. My favorite booktuber also read this book and gave it a couple of stars. And honestly, I thought I've definitely rated it higher than she has, but we'll see how we go. No, she gave it 4 stars, so that really surprised me that I gave it less than her. But anyway, because she doesn't really like the series, but anyway, it is what it is. So, if you want to read this book, this is what it is. Vampire Academy, Volume 1 by Rochelle Mead, the first book in the Vampire Academy series. Alright, thank you so much for watching. Letting you go with peace, blessings, and so much love. And I'll see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye, guys. Bye.